If you don't take that dog and leave, I'll have to call security.
The sun hung low over the small coastal town, casting golden rays across the Blue Water Grill, a quaint seafood restaurant known for its crab cakes and bustling lunch crowd. Inside, Daniel Carson, a 62-year-old retired Marine, stepped through the door, his silver hair cropped military short, his walk marked by a subtle limp, a reminder of battles fought far from home. At his side was Rocky, a Belgian Malinois with intelligent eyes and a graying muzzle, his vest clearly marked, "Service Dog, Do Not Distract." Rocky wasn't just a companion, he was Daniel's lifeline, trained to sense the tremors of anxiety before they overwhelmed his handler, a quiet guardian against the invisible scars of PTSD. Daniel requested a corner table, away from the clatter of dishes and chatter of diners. Rocky settled beneath, nearly invisible, his body pressed close to Daniel's feet, ready to act at the slightest change in his handler's breathing. The young waitress, her smile warm as she brought water and a menu, faltered when she spotted Rocky. Without a word, she turned and hurried to the back, her expression clouded with uncertainty. Moments later, a man in his 30s, his manager's badge gleaming, approached with a frown. His voice cut through the hum of the restaurant, loud enough for nearby tables to turn. "Sir, we have a strict no-pets policy. Health codes, you understand. Other guests might not be comfortable." Daniel's deep-set eyes met the manager's, calm but unwavering. "Rocky's not a pet. He's a service animal." He reached for the certification in his pocket, but the manager waved it away, uninterested. "Rules are rules," he said, crossing his arms. From a nearby table, a woman in designer sunglasses murmured to her companion, just loud enough for Daniel to hear, "A dog's a dog, military or not." The air grew heavy, diners stealing glances while pretending to focus on their meals. Daniel looked down at Rocky, who remained still, trained to ignore the tension in his handler's voice. After a moment, Daniel spoke, his voice low but steady. "This dog pulled me from burning wreckage and stood between me and enemy fire. I won't leave him because someone finds him inconvenient." The manager's expression didn't soften. "Then you know what you need to do." Slowly, Daniel stood, his dignity intact despite the weight of curious stares. Rocky rose in perfect sync, staying close as they walked out, the door swinging shut behind them. Outside, the world felt quieter, but the sting of rejection lingered. An elderly couple passed, the husband offering a fleeting look of solidarity, but they didn't stop. Near the entrance, a group of college students snickered, one filming on his phone. "Check it out, old guy thinks his emotional support pet's special forces," one laughed. Daniel heard but kept walking, his jaw tight. He'd faced worse than smartphone critics in Afghanistan. Across the street, he settled on a park bench, Rocky at his side. From his jacket, he pulled a tuna sandwich, breaking it in half. "Not what I promised you, buddy, but it'll do," he murmured. Rocky ate with disciplined restraint, his eyes never leaving Daniel's face. In that quiet moment, Daniel drew a weathered photograph from his wallet, a younger him, bloodied on a stretcher, Rocky standing vigil, his fur matted with what might have been his handler's blood. The tags around Rocky's neck read Bravo Unit, K9 Division, Afghanistan. The dog had earned commendations most soldiers never would. Daniel tucked the photo away, whispering, "Kicked out again, aren't we?" Rocky's head rested gently on his knee, a gesture unchanged by time or place. The park bench offered a clear view of the Blue Water Grill, its windows reflecting the fading afternoon light. Daniel sat, his hands resting on his knees, the weight of the earlier humiliation settling like dust. Rocky, ever vigilant, scanned their surroundings, his ears twitching at the sound of a passing car. The city moved around them, mothers hurrying children along, joggers weaving through the park, but to Daniel, it felt like he and Rocky were in a world apart. A young mother tugged her curious son away, whispering warnings about approaching strangers with dogs. Daniel pretended not to notice, long accustomed to being seen as something between a curiosity and a threat. He checked his watch, it was nearly time for Rocky's medication, a routine they shared, both scarred by the same blast that had damaged Daniel's leg. A city bus rumbled by, its side plastered with an advertisement, "Honor our veterans, they fought for your freedom." Daniel's lips curved in a wry smile at the irony. Rocky couldn't speak, but his actions had saved lives, standing firm through gunfire and contempt alike. If loyalty had a face, it was the graying muzzle beside him. Daniel's thoughts drifted to Afghanistan, to the chaos of Helmand province, where Rocky had dragged him from wreckage, his barks cutting through the haze of pain. That bond, forged in fire, was stronger than any rulebook a restaurant manager could wield. Across the street, the Blue Water Grill hummed with the lunch rush, oblivious to the man and dog watching from a distance. Inside, the manager who had dismissed Daniel returned to his duties, unaware that the ripples of his decision were already spreading. Outside, the college student who had filmed the confrontation posted his video online, captioning it with a mocking jab about PTSD cases and their pets. The clip began to circulate, drawing likes and comments from strangers who knew nothing of Daniel's story. But not everyone who saw it laughed. A few miles away, a Marine veteran scrolling through his phone paused, his brow furrowing as he recognized the name Daniel Carson. He forwarded the video to a group chat, a network of Bravo unit alumni who never forgot their own. Daniel, unaware of the digital storm, reached into his pocket, his fingers brushing the photograph of Rocky in tactical gear. The image was a tether to a time when their purpose was clear, when every step was a mission. Now, in this quiet park, their mission was simpler, to endure, to stay together. Rocky's head lifted, sensing a shift in Daniel's breathing, and he pressed closer, a silent reminder that they weren't alone. Daniel's hand rested on the dog's head, grounding him. "You've never let me down, have you?" he said softly. Rocky's tail flicked once, a soldier's measured response. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in hues of orange, Daniel felt the weight of the day ease slightly. He didn't know that across town, a group of men in dress blues were already moving, their steps purposeful, their mission clear. The Blue Water Grill was about to learn that some bonds, between man and dog, between brothers in arms, couldn't be dismissed with a wave of a hand. For now, though, Daniel and Rocky sat in their quiet corner of the world, two warriors finding solace in the only company that truly understood. The Blue Water Grill was winding down from its lunch rush, the clatter of plates softening as waitstaff cleared tables. The door swung open with a quiet chime, but the sound was drowned out by the presence of 5 men in marine dress blues, their uniforms crisp, their steps synchronized with military precision. Conversations hushed, a child pointed, a businessman lowered his phone mid-call. The Marines didn't glance at the specials board or scan for empty tables. They moved as one, straight to the host station, their boots echoing on the hardwood floor. The Marine in front, a captain with the name McMillan pinned to his chest, carried an air of quiet authority. He placed his military ID on the counter, his voice steady but resonant. "I'm Captain James McMillan, commanding officer of Bravo Unit, 1st Marine Special Operations Battalion. I'm looking for Daniel Carson and his service dog, Rocky." The manager from earlier emerged from the back office, his confidence faltering at the sight of the uniforms. They left," he stammered, suddenly aware of the phones now recording the scene. "A couple of hours ago." McMillan's expression remained neutral, but his words carried weight, filling the silent restaurant. "Mr. Carson saved 4 men in my unit during an ambush outside Kandahar. His dog, Rocky, has more confirmed saves than most combat medics. He holds the rank of sergeant in our records and has been awarded the Navy and Marine Corps Medal." He paused, letting the truth settle. "And your establishment just refused service to an American hero." No one moved. The woman who had mocked Rocky earlier stared into her water glass, her face flushed. A waiter froze, pitcher tilted mid-pour. The gravity of the moment hung heavy, the manager's earlier dismissal now exposed as a misstep of monumental proportions. One of the Marines stepped forward, holding up his phone. "We're issuing a notice about this to our Veteran Support Network, 15,000 members statewide, so they know how veterans are treated here." The manager raised his hands, his voice shaky. There's been a misunderstanding. We had no idea, Macmillan cut him off, his tone calm but firm. You shouldn't need a service record to treat someone with basic dignity. The Marines didn't raise their voices or demand apologies. Instead, Macmillan placed a framed photograph on the counter, Rocky in full tactical gear, standing proud with Bravo unit, the word brother inscribed below. The gesture was simple but profound, a testament to a bond the restaurant had failed to recognize. As they turned to leave, diners caught a glimpse through the window of an old pickup truck across the street, where Daniel and Rocky sat, unaware of the storm brewing in their defense. The Marines' exit was as disciplined as their entrance, but their message lingered, a challenge to everyone who had witnessed the exchange. Outside, a young server, a college student who had watched the earlier confrontation in silence, felt a pang of guilt. She grabbed a takeout container, filled it with the day's special, crab cakes with a side of coleslaw, and added a slice of apple pie. Scribbling a note, she tucked it under the string, "We were wrong. Please let us make it right." She hurried across the street, her heart racing, and approached Daniel's truck. He looked up, surprise flickering in his eyes as she offered the package. After a moment, he accepted it with a nod, neither forgiving nor condemning, just acknowledging the gesture. "What do you think, buddy?" he asked Rocky, his voice soft. "Should we give them another chance?" Rocky's tail wagged once, a measured response, as if weighing the offer. The pickup truck's engine hummed softly as Daniel set the takeout container on the seat beside him, the handwritten note still tucked under the string. He glanced at Rocky, whose eyes remained fixed on his handler, ever watchful for cues. The young server's gesture, though small, was a crack in the wall of indifference Daniel had felt earlier. He didn't open the container, not yet. Instead, he leaned back, his thoughts drifting between the park bench and the deserts of Helmand province. Rocky shifted closer, sensing the subtle tension in Daniel's posture, a reminder that their bond was a shield against the world's misunderstandings. Across the street, the Blue Water Grill's windows were crowded with faces, diners watching the exchange, their curiosity now tinged with something else, perhaps shame, perhaps respect. Inside the restaurant, the manager stood alone at the counter, the framed photograph of Rocky staring back at him. The Marine's words echoed in his mind, each one a rebuke of his earlier haste. He thought of his own father, a man who followed rules without question, and wondered when he'd forgotten that rules weren't the same as right. The photograph, with its simple inscription of brother, was a mirror reflecting his mistake. He slipped into the back office, his resignation already forming in his mind, a decision that would later be sealed in a letter to the owner. "Thank you for teaching me what law books couldn't." Respect isn't about rules but recognizing worth in others. The restaurant's owner, a woman named Clara whose father had served in Vietnam, arrived later that day. She listened to the staff's accounts, watched the videos now circulating online, and studied the photograph left by the Marines. Clara's hands trembled as she thought of her father's stories, of comradeship, of sacrifices that lingered long after the war. By morning, she'd made changes. A new sign appeared in the Blue Water Grill's window, "We proudly welcome all veterans and their service companions." Below it hung a framed collage of military working dogs, from World War II to Afghanistan, a tribute to the silent warriors who served alongside their handlers. A week later, the local veterans organization gathered outside the restaurant for a small ceremony. Children from a nearby elementary school clutched handmade cards, their drawings of dogs in tiny vests bright with crayons. Rocky sat at perfect attention as a representative pinned an honorary medal to his vest, inscribed "Four-Legged Warrior," above and beyond. Daniel stood beside him, his face unreadable, but his hand rested lightly on Rocky's head, a gesture of pride. A small boy approached, his eyes wide with wonder. "Does he understand when people say thank you?" he asked, pointing to Rocky. Daniel knelt, despite the ache in his leg. "He doesn't need words," he said. "He just needs to be beside the people who remember what he's done." Back at the restaurant, Clara instituted mandatory training for her staff, covering the Americans with Disabilities Act and the role of service animals. She went further, arranging monthly community dinners where veterans could share their stories, their voices filling the space where silence had once reigned. Daniel and Rocky became regulars, always at the same corner table, now marked with a small American flag and a plaque, "Daniel and Rocky, Bravo Team, never forgotten." The gesture wasn't grand, but it was enough, a quiet acknowledgement of their place in the community. The corner table at the Blue Water Grill became a sanctuary for Daniel and Rocky, a place where the clatter of the restaurant faded into the background, leaving room for their quiet companionship. Diners learned to recognize them, offering nods of respect rather than curious stares. One evening, a young man approached, his phone in hand but not recording. It was the college student who had filmed the initial confrontation, his mocking video long deleted. "I wanted to say I'm sorry," he said, shifting uncomfortably. "My brother just enlisted. I'd want someone to respect him if," he trailed off, unable to finish. Daniel extended his hand, his voice steady. "Then be that someone now, for others." The young man nodded, a weight lifted, and walked away with a new perspective. Rocky, though graying and slower, remained vigilant. During one lunch, a car backfired outside, the sharp crack sending a tremor through Daniel's hands. Before anyone noticed, Rocky pressed against his leg, grounding him until the shaking passed. Nearby diners looked away, not out of embarrassment but from a newfound understanding of privacy, a respect earned through the story that had unfolded in their town. The restaurant had changed, but so had the community, each person touched by the reminder that heroes, whether on 2 legs or 4, deserved more than indifference. 3 months later, Captain McMillan's unit prepared to deploy again. Before leaving, they visited Daniel at his modest home, presenting him with a unit coin, a rare honor for a non-active Marine. Daniel turned the coin over in his hand, its weight a reminder of the brotherhood that had stood for him when he needed it most. He kept it in his pocket, alongside the photograph of Rocky, 2 talismans of a life defined by loyalty. McMillan knelt to scratch Rocky's ears, his voice low. "Keep looking after him, Sergeant." Rocky's tail wagged, a soldier acknowledging his orders. On quiet evenings, Daniel and Rocky could be found on their porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of amber and crimson. Their silence held memories, of desert heat, the roar of explosions, the whistle of bullets too close, but it also carried the knowledge that sometimes, humanity remembered its obligations. The Blue Water Grill's sign, the Veterans Medal, the children's cards, they were small gestures, but they were enough to remind Daniel that he and Rocky weren't alone. The world hadn't always understood them, but in this town, their story had taken root, a testament to the power of standing up for what was right. The bond between Daniel and Rocky was more than a story, it was a lesson in loyalty, dignity, and the quiet strength of those who serve. As the stars emerged above their porch, Daniel rested his hand on Rocky's head, the dog's warmth a steady presence. They had faced war, rejection, and ridicule, but they had also found a community that learned to see them, to honor them. In that shared silence, they were home, 2 warriors who had never abandoned each other, their legacy carried forward by those who chose to remember.